Hi, Kate. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Wendy?
Good. I'm so glad we finally could connect like this and share a little bit about both our organizations.
I know. I'm so excited too. It's definitely a long time coming because we talked about this months ago or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, it was, yeah, at least maybe 6 months ago. And, I was thinking about how we even originally connected and started talking. And it was through a mutual friend of ours in the nonprofit community who said, you guys need to get together. And we did.
Right. Yep. So we're finally here talking about our joint mission. So Wendy, why don't you just like recap for us, what Benjamin Goldberg is, how it got started, and your role, all that kind of thing.
Right. Well, my name is Wendy Goldberg, and I am founder of the Benjamin Goldberg Foundation. And we started in 2018, and in honor and memory of my son Ben, who had a rare cancer called neuroblastoma. And he was treated here at our local children's hospital, and he was also treated at Sloan Memorial Kettering Cancer Center. And it was in our time there that we really got exposed to the creative art therapies. And I really saw the importance of them when a family's going through treatment. And so, it took me some time to kind of gather myself to be able to, to do more and to really do this in a meaningful way. But now we are, working with the Children's Hospital and bringing some of these programs to the hospital and, raising the awareness in the community. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, I come to it not from the founder perspective, which sometimes makes me jealous. But we have an amazing founder at Tidewater Arts Outreach. Her name is Marianne Tobos. And about 17 years ago, which is wild to me, she had this vision for bringing arts experiences to older adults in particular. She saw a real need in senior living communities, hospitals, day support centers, that type of setting for bringing creative experiences. And, I think the emphasis at the beginning was definitely music. She is a musician, and that's her passion, but it quickly expanded to visual arts, drama, and performing arts, and even literary arts, which is, something that we do a lot more of now. So that's kind of the beginning. I started with the organization as the director of development back in 2018 and became the executive director last fall in the middle of a pandemic. So that was exciting times. But we are now, doing all sorts of programs everywhere. Program demand has really increased, which I'll talk about more why that's happening later.
Awesome. So, so tell me, why do you feel like your mission is important?
So I think often when I start with, I'm Tidewater Arts Outreach, and we bring arts programs to older adults and adults experiencing isolation, the very first reaction is, that's nice. And it is nice. And I don't want anyone to ever think like, I'm saying the wrong thing by saying that. It's not that. But I would submit that it's essential. I like statistics. I write a lot of grants, and so I end up, doing a lot of research. And I have some honestly not very pleasant statistics that I share with people when we talk about our mission. And the first is that when it comes to older adults in this country, ages 50 to 80, about 56% of them now, and this is after the pandemic onset, experience significant loneliness and social isolation. We're talking about that, like you can be in a crowded room and still feel like you have no one and there's no one to talk to sensation. And about 40% of adults who are experiencing a chronic illness or a debilitating disability also have this sense of profound isolation. And 47% of adults with a mental health, condition that they're either seeking treatment for or is just undiagnosed, also experience a significant loneliness. So we're talking about almost half the population experiencing just like so much loneliness all the time. And when I explain the loneliness factor, I sometimes get that's nice that you're helping with loneliness. And I'm like, okay, so let me continue, because loneliness in older adults in particular, it increases your risk for dementia by 50%, wow. Your risk for stroke and heart attack by anywhere from 29 to 32%. So when we're talking about combating loneliness, we're actually talking about a public health crisis. We're not talking about, oh, it's nice if we can make people feel less lonely. We're saying that if we're going to have good health outcomes in this country, we need to combat isolation, and the arts just have this profound way of getting right, through a lot of barriers and helping people feel more connected with those around them, more connected with themselves. Like, you can be lonely from yourself, which I think we've all learned during this pandemic. And so that's like what I like to drive home about this mission is this is essential to the wellness of our citizens in this country. It's not just, oh, it's a nice thing to have.
Right. I feel the same way. Like, the things that we talk about, like creative arts, the music, the art, the movement dance. I mean, it is something so essential to our being, and sometimes I question, how did we get so far away from that?
Right. I think that, the more holistic approach is, has been celebrated in the past. And then maybe as we've, I think that, not that I don't think an emphasis on STEM is a good thing. Like, I think it is. And we definitely need more of that in this country. But I prefer the STEAM acronym that includes the A in there, because I think that even in sciences, there is creativity and artistic avenues in sciences and engineering. I mean, even in something like architecture, that is an art. There is like a visual beauty to it that isn't always necessary to like the structure or whatnot. So I think that we definitely need to get back to let's integrate all of that education wise, and then that comes out in when we're talking about like healthcare and wellness, that it's like we need to wrap around all of these things. And I think you've seen at Benjamin Goldberg, like the type of outcomes that I'm talking about, like the improved health outcomes or improved wellness outcomes when when children are experiencing treatments for medical conditions. Am I correct?
Right. And I can't speak to it, as I'm not a medical practitioner.
Right.
However, from experiencing and witnessing in other families, I mean, I think that when you bring in these creative arts, it not only helps the child, it helps the family and ultimately the staff of the hospital. And that can only, affect maybe not technically the outcome per se, but maybe the treatment goes better, or maybe they're dismissed from the hospital a little earlier, or maybe they don't need as many medications as they thought in the beginning. So those are the kinds of things that I think are really powerful. And sometimes they're hard to nail down with data, but that is, there is science behind it, but not as much, I think it's being collected
Right.
in a more meaningful way now.
Yeah, absolutely. The research is getting so much better in this area for sure. Wendy, describe one of your programs at the Children's Hospital? Like, what if someone were just to like walk in randomly, what would they see?
Okay, so just recently, the hospital approached us about the naming of the hematology oncology playroom on the 5th floor. So it is called the Benjamin Goldberg Playroom. So that is really exciting. Right now during COVID, there's not as much activity or programming that can happen in that space. But what we were hoping is that it would be kind of a center, if you will, for some of there is a music therapist at the hospital now. There is an art therapist, so they could have groups and all. So that is just such a wonderful thing for us to know that some of those things are in the works. And, our latest project is called the Peace Out Portal. And so, a lot of times we were in the hospital for long stints of time, 13 days. And sometimes the playroom could be open, but maybe Ben wasn't feeling well enough to go, or maybe he felt like going in, it was closed. So I really felt strongly that we could create a virtual space, and it just so happened it was COVID. So we kind of really connected with practitioners in our community and outside, some dance therapists, art therapists, physical therapists who could bring some of these modalities into one space. So someone could pop on and there's a music room, and there is a movement room, and there is videos on acupressure and all sorts of different things that can really, to help a family relax, or to help learn about you know, what these things are. Because what I experience is a lot of times when we say these things, you know, creative arts therapies are in line with integrated medicine, you know, people get a dazed overlook. They don't know that these even exist. And so, you know, I think a lot of what we're doing is just sharing information right now.
Absolutely. And I loved how you talked about, you know, sometimes your focus is not just the person, patient in this case, you're talking about the whole family. And that is huge, especially when we're talking about, you know, something that can be isolating, like going through, you know, a significant diagnosis, a treatment for, you know, any kind of medical condition like that can make the family feel like we're the only ones going through this. And you know, and so, yes, obviously the patient is kind of at the center of the storm, but I mean, the parents and siblings and, you know, other primary caretakers, I mean, they're going to be right there next to them. And it's very easy to kind of forget that they also need, you know, they also need services. I love the peace out terminology. Like,
yeah, it was always like peace out. It was like, because Ben would always, you know, was notorious for his headphones. So it was his safe space, you know, before a treatment or after a treatment, he'd make playlists, and, you know, it was a way for him to check out and in such a beautiful way, but he was also willing to say, here's my playlist. Do you want to see it? And share it with other people. So, yeah, I mean, I just sometimes feel so grateful that we had these experiences, you know, when I look back and know that we could, it just created a way for all of us to stay connected.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think the evidence is sitting right here with me right now, Wendy. Like you've taken an extremely painful experience, you know, I never want to minimize what you've been through, but you have, you know, you've turned it into a mechanism for bringing, you know, healing experiences to others. And, you know, and I think that introducing people into creative arts therapies, like you're describing, when they're in the midst of some of the most difficult things that they're ever going to go through. I mean, I just cannot even imagine. So I'm not myself a parent, so I don't have that at all. But you know, it's like wonderful to hear your story and how you're, you know, you're it's like a phoenix rising from the ashes type thing, you know, where it's, yeah, I don't know what else to say about it.
Thanks. No, and I say this sometimes, and like, I feel like it's not something that I like necessarily wanted to do, but when I started exploring what I was going to do, everyone came together. Like, we called Sloan, we went up and they shared their program. CHKD said, sure, let's do. I mean, it was like all of these little pieces came together, and how could, you know, and that's when I really think it's way bigger than me. It's way bigger than Ben, you know. There is such a need in the community for these things. And when we took some of the COVID time and we reached out to local pediatricians and other practitioners, and what the response was, like, green light, go. You know, not only do the children in treatment need it, all, you know, we really feel that we are seeing our kids and our, you know, in our general practice need it as well. So that's when you really feel like, wow, I mean, this is something to, you know, and then it became very clear that I needed to get very clear about how I was going to share this, and how we were going to, you know, create a platform, you know, and do some amazing things. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. At TAO, we, when I get the fly on the wall question of like, what does this program look like? First of all, I'm usually like, well, which program? We do have a lot of different things, but to kind of like boil it down to something very basic, our mission is to bring the arts experience to the people that we're trying to serve. So we're looking for where older adults or adults experiencing isolating circumstances, where are they already receiving services? And often that's senior living communities, it's hospitals, it's day support centers, it's shelters, it's hospice providers, it's in-home healthcare. So we partner with these other you know, services and businesses that are already serving who we're trying to get to. And then we bring the arts program to their various care settings. So that might be in a hospital, similar to how you're delivering your services. It might be in the senior living communities, community room, or, you know, living area. You know, they're all kind of designed a little bit differently. It might be delivering experiences through home health aides directly into the home of older adults. So that's, we use these program partners, as we call them, as conduits for the arts experience. And we're very clear, we're not I know you guys are very much in the therapy space. We are very clear that we are not in the therapy space, that we're in the wellness space. But we still leverage creative partners for the same purpose. So we have a huge artist roster of, musicians and visual artists and dramatists and creative writers, and we send them into these different settings. And I was actually just talking with my program director earlier about how we ask so much of our artists, because they're used to, they're maybe used to producing art for ticketed events or for a party type atmosphere, celebratory things, or putting on a new show, or it's a new gallery at the museum, and things that are, maybe a little more focused on like the art itself. And we're asking them to leverage their art for wellness for those that they're serving. It's very much like a service model. And our artists, I mean, first of all, they're usually like terrified at the beginning. They're like, what are you asking me to do? But they're because they see the world very differently than like the typical healthcare provider, like that's why they can make such a great team with, the care team that's already in place. Is, the care team has, goals and, objectives that they're trying to meet. And then the artist comes in with like just a completely different perspective, and is able to, kind of maybe lift that person out of what they're in at that moment. Because we all know, again, I think we can all learn from the pandemic in this past year and a half, like we can't stay in like the facts and the brutal like truth of what's going on all the time as human beings. Like we need to be able to like exit, peace out, as you said, on a regular basis. Not that we need to check out from reality, that's a different problem, but we need the ability to like be removed from that sphere for, an hour at a time, a couple minutes a day at least. Let me lose myself in painting something. Let me lose myself in journaling. Let me just get into that experience, so that I'm not necessarily sitting here thinking about like, tomorrow I have another chemo treatment, or, I don't remember this person's name anymore, and I know I should, all of those things that, can plague the people that we're serving. So that's what we're doing. It's super cool and challenging all at the same time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, and I love when you and I first connected, you shared a video with me, and it really, I mean, I got full body chills, I think in tears, and I just love seeing, what we're talking about, and you see it, you can see it in the person, they change.
Absolutely.
And kids. So can you share that story with us?
Oh yeah. So one of my favorite programs that we do here, it's actually our annual fundraiser, but it's the Once More concert. And it's called Once More. It was actually the brainchild of a previous executive director. But it's called Once More because it's that it's that play on words where you go up to like maybe a grandparent or some other kind of like older member of the family and say, tell me once more about ... So, tell me about your stories, tell me a memory, tell me something, a family history. And so the Once More concert pairs songwriters from this region with older adults also from this region. So we have 4 pairings usually in each concert. And the songwriter meets their inspiration, that's what we call the older adults, and interviews them, kind of learns more about their story and the challenges and their favorite memories, and what their families were like and all that kind of thing. And then the songwriter writes a song about their inspiration. And it's very cool because sometimes the songwriter is very literal, and it's like, those country songs that like literally tell the story of like a girl and her father or something like that. So sometimes they're like that. And other times they're very much like taking the philosophy of the person, and putting it into a musical, work. So I'm trying to remember which one I shared with you. I think it was, the one with Will Overman and Emily Filer, if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken.
It
Yes.
was.
Because and what was interesting about that parent, this was you can't make this stuff up, okay? So this is my favorite story because of this. Emily Filer started a nonprofit in Hampton Roads called Lee's Friends. And Lee's Friends does wraparound services for families who are experiencing a cancer diagnosis. Honestly, in a very similar vein to what you're trying to achieve with the Benjamin Goldberg Foundation. So, you know, someone in the family is diagnosed with cancer. And of course, obviously, as we said earlier, the patient's at the center of it, but the family is also very much going through it. And when Emily first started Lee's Friends, and she started it because of her daughter Lee, who she lost to Hodgkin's disease. And Emily will tell you that when she was going through this with Lee, that there was like the statistics, it was like a 92% rate of like families breaking up over something, over a cancer diagnosis, like over a significant illness, and then losing the person. So losing a child would like blow up the family. And, you know, and to Emily, obviously this became very, very close and personal. And Lee's Friends is meant to, you know, come alongside the family and help them achieve better outcomes, whether the person who is going through cancer survives or not. You know, obviously the goal is always survival and trying to achieve the best health outcomes. But when it doesn't happen, you know, trying to stick with the family and make sure that they, you know, the family unit is still there at the end of it. So that's Emily. And then Will Overman, our songwriter, his wife went through cancer twice and has survived, thankfully. And he's, you know, he's like 30 something years old, maybe younger, actually. He might be mad at me if I do that, but he's like a young adult, right? And Emily's older. But when the two of them came together, first of all, when we first paired them, we didn't realize the similar experiences until after the pairing. And I remember calling them and being like, I did not do this on purpose. Are you guys okay? You know, talking about this experience. And they're both like, oh yeah, we're great. And when they came together for their interview, and I mean, I have the videos that I can share with anyone who needs them, but they were so strong. Like they were able to talk to each other as if there was no age gap. And I mean, like they knew, like they could understand each other so quickly. And they were so again, strong about it. They were able to, you know, share the experience, and it was hard for them. Obviously, it wasn't like, oh, you know, whatever, but like me and the production crew are losing it, you know, in the background, and they're just very like, you know, well, like wellness had been achieved for them. You know what I mean? Like they had clearly come out of this just amazing people. And so the song that Will ended up writing for Emily was kind of from her daughter's perspective, as if she was like watching her mother, but like about her mother, you know, and it was like, yeah. So can share the song with anyone who's interested in hearing it. As you said, it's one of those like body chills, tears, like all these things. I remember after we debuted that at the concert, lots of people were texting going like, yeah, okay, thanks. Like I'm now, you know, mascara running down my face. So anyway, but yeah, that's my absolute favorite story. Do you have like a favorite experience? You know, something that you
I have so many, but I think, you know, recently, you know, it was a very special day for us. We brought Ben's dance therapist from Sloan Kettering to CHKD. She did a grand rounds at the hospital. She spent the whole day. She met with the residents. She was in the playroom. She met with the stakeholders group. But I remember I was in the playroom and sitting, and she just met the music therapist very organically. They just started doing their thing, and 4 kids came in. And, you know, children who were in treatment, you know, kind of like wobbling in, one had a feeding tube. I mean, clearly not feeling well. And they start working together, and you could see these children just light up. Their posture was better. You know, they're engaging with each other. And one of them left to get, I assumed to get a medication, and came back into playroom. And he just happened to sit next to me on this ball. And I said, did you like that? And he said, I did. And he started banging on his little ball like a drum and humming. And I'm thinking to myself, I just had this surreal moment. Like, I was like, wow, everything that I experienced there and I wanted to bring here is here and is happening. And now people can, because it's one thing for a parent to say it and, like, okay, yeah, that's cute. But I mean, when they experience it with the children in their hospital, I feel like that's when things changed and opened the doors a little bit. And it was just a beautiful moment for me.
That's amazing. And I think it's like when you see it all come together, like I still, when I visit programs, I visited a program last night that I walked out and was like, wow, I get to do this, like it's sometimes it's really hard. And sometimes, running a nonprofit is not a joke. It's a difficult situation. But it's a privilege because, like your outcomes are about, bettering the world, like that's what you're
right. It's that whatever the ripple effect is that I may never see in my lifetime. I mean, and I don't have to know, I don't have to, but what you're doing is important.
Right.
And, you're right. I'm honored, to share whenever I can.
I think whenever you get glimpses of that ripple effect, because you can never see it all, probably overwhelming if you did. But when every once in a while, like you'll see a moment and you're like, oh my gosh, that's happening a lot more than I thought, like I didn't realize, and it's so cool. So Wendy, how does someone get involved with the Benjamin Goldberg Foundation? Like, do you have to be a therapist to get involved? Like, what's the,
Right. Well, right now we're still in this collaboration phase. Our pre-COVID, our vision was to have a center, the Benjamin Goldberg Center for Healing, something similar where we could house some of these things. And, all of that got halted, of course, and our focus has gone in this virtual realm with the portal. But, we get a lot of requests. People want to volunteer their time. We have a gala coming up in February that we're going to need some help with, but as far as like the practitioners, what we do is we're creating a community of practitioners and maybe connecting them with, does the hospital need someone? Maybe I could, make an introduction, something like that. But we're always looking for, I do a podcast. I'm doing a series of interviews now with, I've done art therapy, music therapy, yoga, meditation. So anybody who wants to reach out and share some of their expertise and to a broader audience, we're always willing to, to get with.
Awesome.
And how about you? And so our website is www.benjamingoldbergfoundation.org. And they can reach out, our emails, and my staff's email is on there as well.
Perfect. For TAO, we actually have a really exciting volunteer opportunity right now. We finally launched it, and it was scary because it's definitely COVID makes it a challenging opportunity. But we think we're able to slowly start getting this going. It's the Adopt a Community volunteer program. So we first of all, we have 30 to 40 programs happening a month right now, and there's 2 staff people.
Wow.
So we're running around 5 different directions, and so we need volunteers to help us do what we call host programs. So, making sure the artist is settled in, has arrived safely, helping with, sometimes, especially with the visual arts programs, helping the participants engage with it. Just being the eyes and ears at the program itself and making sure all is well, making sure surveys get done, that type of thing. But after a conversation with Stacy, my program director, we realized that it would be much more effective if we had the same volunteer at the same community or setting on a regular basis, so that it wasn't just sometimes the artists, sometimes they're steady artists, we have partners who use the same artist regularly, and sometimes they rotate. So the artists do try to make connections with the people that they're working with, but that's not always possible depending on how the programming is structured. But the volunteer, if it's the same volunteer, no matter which artist, then that can, give them the ability to connect with someone from the TAO side on a regular basis. If I'm a resident at X community and, it might be painting one month, it might be music the next month, but I know that this particular TAO volunteer, we'll call him Bob, is going to be there, every single time. And that becomes kind of my connection, my connection association with the program. So, so if anyone's interested in that type of work, we definitely, I think we're up to like 31 program partners this year, and we're going to start about 9 more before 2021 ends. So we've got plenty of opportunities, plenty of settings, different times and days and whatnot. And it's all very low pressure. We just tell you when the programs are scheduled. If you can make it, great. If you can't, it's not a big deal. Everybody works or, has children and responsibilities, like not, it's not meant to be like a job necessarily, but just an opportunity. So our website for more information about that and everything else that we're doing is tidewaterartsoutreach.org. Arts is plural. I like to say that. And it's .org, not .com. Though I think if you use .com, you'll technically get there, but I wouldn't test that. Yeah, and all of our contact information is up there. Everything about donating, our special events, everything else is on that website.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm just so glad we were able to connect today and share, a little bit more. One of my favorite things is when I talk to people like you and just get to, I love your passion that you bring to the organization, and it definitely comes through.
Oh, thank you. And I mean, your passion for your organization is very palpable. I remember I didn't realize you were a CPA until like the end of our first conversation. You said something about like, oh, I'm a CPA. And I was like, you are?
Yeah, that's a whole thing. It's a whole firm. It's
right, exactly. And it's like, oh yeah, and I do this on the side. I was like, what? So I mean, it's Benjamin Goldberg is obviously so much of like who you are that it just like fills the whole room, and it's like startling to realize like, oh, you have this whole other career as well. So I think it's super cool that you're able to balance it. TAO is my career and my passion. So, and that's plenty. Like my husband.
But what I have to say is so important, the way I balance it is the arts,
Right.
Like I go to yoga, Pilates, dance. I mean, those are the things that truly ground me.
Yes. Well, and I think when we're talking about like arts for wellness, like we're talking about the people we're trying to serve, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what we learn, I think, in doing this work is that we need it too. That's how we're gonna that's how we're going to survive another day in order to keep producing these programs, is having, I'm a musician by trade, not saxophone. I know it kind of looks like it, but clarinet, which is better than saxophone. For those of you who are on audio only, there's a saxophone in the background of my recording here. So I often get the question like, do you play saxophone? No, I play clarinet. But anyway, I think that's definitely like we learn, so much about like our own, journeys of wellness. Like I was doing a demo the other day. A visual arts artist wanted to show me her acrylic pour program. And so I was doing it, and I was just like having so much fun. And like my program director and I were like joking each other's, work, and like yours looks like, crazy, and we were just messing around. But they both turned out beautifully. But it was just half an hour of, again, suspending like the current experience. It had been a crazy week, we're super busy, as I was saying earlier, and we were able just kind of like to exit out of it. And Wendy, I remember when we first talked, we made this joke about being the cake and not the icing. That's so
I forgot this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like so often that people are like, oh, the that's nice thing about the arts, and like, oh, it's just the icing on the cake. And we're like, no, we're part of the cake. If you don't have us in the cake falls down. People need creative expression. It is a need. Like it's not just like, oh, that's nice to have.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's fundamental.
Right. Absolutely.
To healing. I really do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree. We refer to it as the healing power of the arts here. And I think it's fundamental to any society. And you'll see every society in this world has creative expression. They have art, they have music, they have dance. I've yet to come across a society that doesn't have, these types of outlets for itself. And I think that should tell us something about what humans need.
Yes, we just have to tap back into it.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, it's been so wonderful to chat with you, Wendy.
I know, anytime. But hopefully this is just the beginning of maybe some things we can do together in the future.
Absolutely. Well, until next time then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.